keeping older adults at home longer can be done with technologies and different services. Technology is not the only solution, and there are certain challenges that come with having technologies in the home, such as privacy issues, data security. But technologies can certainly be helpful for older adults to age in place longer. Because if you think about certain challenges around the home, just getting around the space, and that could become more difficult as people experience changes in their mobility and changes in their physical health. Having sensors around the home could help them be safer around the home, prevent falls, monitor their behaviors, and notice and give them notifications when certain things go out of pattern. So that's a possibility. Also, another possibility is to look at different services that could be brought into the home. So if you think about assisted living communities, they offer services such as transportation, meal prep, housework. But if you think about some services that are offered right now in the on-demand sharing economy, there are ways to bring those services into individual homes too. And we've actually done a thought experiment looking at if that really makes sense for people. And we saw that people are accepting of those services. People like to experiment with those services, and it also makes financial sense for people because assisted living is very expensive, whereas if you bring in some of the services, it might actually be cheaper for people. But one of the challenges is that those services and those technologies are not available to everyone. So if you're living in rural areas, certain services might not be available for you. If you have a very old house, your house might not be able to accommodate different technologies. So there are certain challenges around those too, and thinking about, again, privacy, because things that happen around your home, in your bathroom, in your bedroom, those are very private places, so people might not be willing to share everything that's happening in there. Also thinking about who's getting the data. Is it your family members? Is it someone else? Are you willing to share everything with your adult children, your grandchildren, or someone who's providing the services? So thinking about those issues will be a challenge in the future. Another very important issue is that right now, the different technologies that can go into the home, the different services, they're all offered separately. So if you want to have sensors in your home, you have to manage how those are installed, if they're really connected. You have to think about, you really have to manage the different devices separately and different services. If you're bringing in a ride, if you're bringing in meal prep, there are certain apps that you have to use, certain websites you have to go to. It's a lot to manage for caregivers and older adults. So one of the challenges to think about how to integrate some of the services so that it's easier to navigate, and thinking about how to curate some of those services and information. AGNES stands for Age Gain Now Empathy System. Is a aging suit. What it does is it has a series of bungees, weights inside the suit to simulate muscle loss, difficulties in mobility, changes in physical conditions that are common to older adults. While AGNES doesn't really have an age, it has conditions that are common among people who are in the late 70s or early 80s. And it's a tool that we developed for empathy. So while it could be a research tool, we use it more for promoting empathy among designers and people who are offering different products and services. So we've used AGNES with our industry partners to think about their retail spaces, their products, their services, and we've had people from our industry partner, people from those companies wear the suit, navigate their stores, use their products, use their services to see what's difficult, to see what can be improved. We've also used it with students who are designing new products, students who are thinking about going into medical practice, to feel what it's like to be in that demographic segment, so that they feel what they're feeling. We've also used it with people who are, we've also used it to think about office design, thinking about when you're coming into an office, it could be a doctor's office, could be a financial advisor's office, which are all relevant in terms of getting old and navigating longevity, and thinking about if you have certain conditions, is this an accommodating space, or can something be improved about the space? Yeah, and AGNES is useful because you can always go out and ask older adults, what's difficult? What can we improve for you? But that's not always useful because one, older adults sometimes don't want to talk about them, sometimes don't want to talk about what's bothering them. Sometimes they don't want to open up and start talking about being old and having difficulties that are associated with being old. Another challenge is that sometimes they don't feel that they're experiencing difficulties because aging doesn't happen overnight. Aging happens across several decades. So people get used to changes. People develop ways to get around different issues, different problems. So someone might not be really experiencing different challenges, but if you put a 20-year-old designer, a 30-year-old designer into the suit, it's an instant moment. It's an instant aha moment. They can really feel what's not right, what can be improved, what can be changed. And AGNES is one example of the tools that we developed for getting ideas, getting and understanding needs and wants of the consumer and the user. And we certainly do other studies too. We like to do things like getting into people's homes to observe what they're doing, thinking about where they're doing certain things, where tasks are being carried out, where technology is being consumed, where services are being accessed. So we do a lot of in-home studies, also thinking about when we can't get into the homes, doing some remote observations and remote ethnography. So asking people to give us photos, diaries, detailed records of their activities. So these are some things that we do to collect responses, collect data.